This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Black Friday Game Day on Prime is an epic day of live sports. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern with the Capital One Skins game. Then, Black Friday football returns when the Bears take on the Eagles at 3 p.m. And it culminates with the final night of Emirates NBA Cup group play with Bucks Knicks at 7 p.m. and Mavs Lakers at 10 p.m. Black Friday Game Day, only on Prime.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the five of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault, a new series streaming now only on Peacock.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means. That is Stefan Krajisnik. This is your Monday Leave No Doubt pod, where every week we try to come on and answer the simple question of, did Ohio State leave no doubt? And that can fall under a plethora of different concepts for how we're doing it. It's very simple this week. It's Michigan week. So that's what we're talking about. For the next 7 days of our lives, that's what we're talking about, Ohio State and Michigan. And the Big Ten put out its scenarios. It's 7 different scenarios that can happen. There is one scenario where Ohio State and Michigan could play each other this Saturday and then play each other again the following Saturday. I'm praying that is not the scenario that happens. I get it. I think it's great for like business, but I don't know if we're prepared for back-to-back Ohio State-Michigan games yet. I think you have to come into the season, Stefan, mentally ready to deal with that. I don't know if that can be sprung on you at 6:30 on Saturday after they just played against each other.
I guess we have the benefit of Indiana and Purdue playing on Friday night, so we'll at least know, like if Indiana wins, we know, okay, they are in the Big Ten championship game. Like we cannot have Ohio State and Michigan make it if Indiana beats Purdue. So
yes,
if Indiana loses to Purdue on Friday night, we're going to have a very angsty Saturday of, are we about to watch this game happen twice in consecutive weeks? Because I think Washington can beat Oregon. I don't know if they will.
Yeah.
I probably predict that. I'll predict right now that Indiana and Oregon both win their games. But if Indiana loses, I'm going to be going into Saturday being like, this is about to get really weird, isn't it? Because sometimes you can kind of sense when college football is about to give you a weird week. Like, this past Saturday, you could kind of get through it being like, oh, it's going to be kind of a chalk week. Like, there's not going to be a ton of weird stuff going on. But when it's something that is getting kind of funky, you can smell it pretty early on. If Indiana loses to Purdue on Friday night, I'm keeping my guard up on Saturday as being insane and us somehow getting Ohio State, Michigan in back-to-back weeks.
And the thing is, I think it just changes the way we look at next Saturday. If we're walking into that game, like, okay, this can happen. Because if Ohio State were to lose, I don't think we're writing a bunch of like, how dare you lose it for a 5th straight time? Because it's like kind of a pointless, monotonous thing to do at that point. Because we're just going to go, okay, well, you lost. Now you've lost 5 in a row and you get a chance to like heal that 7 days from now. So I don't even know I think we're almost going to be telling people to put a pause on their emotions for things. And I'm not in the mental space to do that yet.
I don't think Ohio State fans are particularly interested in doing that.
I think everybody would like for this rivalry losing streak to end, unless you're a Michigan fan, obviously. But I think Ohio State fans and then like the neutral people would rather it like, okay, what if we ended it this year and then next year it's setting up for Bryce Underwood year 2 as a starter, Julian Sand year 2 as a starter. These two teams might play each other back-to-back weeks because they're the best 2 teams in the Big Ten. I can wrap my head around that idea versus, hey, this game just ended. Guess what? You got to do this again in 7 days. I'm just going to be like, no, pass.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to do that. Just don't want to do that. But we did rewatch Ohio State Rutgers 42-9 win to get to 11-0 getting to this game. This is, I think, the 4th time that Ohio State has been 11-0. Third time that Ohio State has been 11-0 entering this game since Ryan Day became the head coach in 2019. They were 11-0. In 2022, they were 11-0. Michigan was also 11-0 in that game. 2023, they were 11-0, so I did have my math right, fourth. And now this year, they're 11-0 heading into this game. Michigan, unlike the last two times, is not 11-0 entering this game. But we did watch Rutgers. We did rewatch that Ohio State Rutgers win, but we didn't watch the offense because I think we talked about it. It's the receivers didn't live up to maybe what we were expecting them to live up to. Ohio State spent 2 weeks working on its run game. I think they've had over like 115 carries the last two games. And I guess we can talk about that later this week, Stefan. I think you and I both have walked away from what we've seen from the run game and been very impressed with it. But there is kind of that asterisk of these were two of the worst run defenses in college football. So how much of a grain of salt do you take things with versus just paying attention to were guys executing, how are the running backs when they got to the second level? And I guess we can talk about that later this week. I just want to talk about the defense because I felt it in the moment, and I felt it definitely rewatching it that Matt Patricia is starting to ramp it up a little bit. And I am wondering if he showed us some things against Rutgers that weren't about Rutgers. They were about getting the reps on film because they're about to play Michigan, and they're in playoff mode now. But more importantly, Michigan's got a true freshman quarterback who a lot of the things that Matt Patricia was doing to Ethan Kaliakmanis has not proven he can handle those things yet.
Yeah, I think there's two areas where the defense is very fascinating from rewatching the Rutgers game. I think it starts up front. I mean, the first snap of the game, you have Arvell rushing with Caden Curry dropping back in coverage. You have Arvell and Caleb later in the game, like taking turns looking like they're both rushing. And then you got to decide which one is rushing. And then Caleb comes in and gets his sack. And, Arvell, I don't know if you have PFF in front of you. I'd be fascinating to know how many times he lined up at DN versus like how many times he lined up as a linebacker, because it seemed like he was on the line of scrimmage just constantly in that game against Rutgers. So just all the different fronts, it felt less vanilla than maybe we had seen against UCLA or Purdue, and frankly, even Penn State. I thought they were somewhat vanilla with what they threw at Penn State because of Grunkemeyer and kind of what they felt like they could get away with. Obviously, Wisconsin, you didn't have to throw a lot at them in terms of what they present on offense. So up front, this was kind of like a return to form for Matt Patricia, just in terms of throwing a lot of stuff, at the quarterback, Kaliakmanis, and making it really difficult for him to predict what's coming. Make it very difficult for that offensive line. Like, I thought it was very interesting. Giano did his press or his sideline hit after the first quarter with Jenny Taft, and she had asked, about what they were doing, and he was like, "They're really tough up front. Like, we're trying our best. I'm really proud of my guys for like fighting." Like, I think Giano was like, "We're in hell right now, and my guys are trying their best, and I'm very proud of them for doing that." So I thought Ohio State dominated the line of scrimmage, and I thought all the different things that they did with Arvell, and Sonny's in this too, because I thought Sonny had a really good game. He was all over the field when you go and rewatch this. And then obviously Caleb in the way that he was presented and the different ways that he was used. It just felt like ramp up. Yeah, ramp up is the perfect word, where it's like, we know what they could do. There was a stretch where they didn't really have to do it. Again, Riley Pettijohn played like on the second drive against Purdue, rotating in with Arvell Reese. Like, it's clear that the defense the last few weeks has taken a very, vanilla approach to things. And that's fine, because now against Rutgers, a very good offense, right? An explosive offense. They ramped it up a little bit, probably because it's Rutgers and what they can do, but probably also because, hey, Michigan's on the other side. You want to put things on tape, or on film. You want to make sure that players are kind of ready to go and back in the right mindset, and almost kind of like a wake-up call. So I just thought the defensive front was interesting. I don't know if you want to say something on that before I talk about the other area of the defense that I thought is probably worth the conversation.
Yeah. Arvell, 26 snaps where he was lined up as a defensive lineman. Those are all on the edge outside of the tackle. But that's the third most snaps that he has spent at edge in a game, behind Texas and Washington. Ironically enough, two games where it made sense. For him, he was on the edge 4 of his 64 snaps against Texas, and then 29 of his 53 snaps against Washington, 26 of his 44 against Rutgers. He was lined up in the slot for a couple plays, but that just might be because of how Rutgers lined up. He just ended up, in coverage in those situations. And then 16 snaps in the box, which is in the middle of the road for him. The games under that are 13 against Grambling, where he barely played because it's Grambling, 12 against Wisconsin, 10 against Purdue, where he barely played, and then 8 the week before against UCLA. So, yeah, the edge snaps, I think, are going to go up. for Arvell Reese. It was 34 against Texas because, that was a top 3 matchup at the time. 29 against Washington because Washington we thought was very good and it was a road game and Washington's got some talent, so of course you do it then. So the fact that you picked Rutgers, the fact that he was on the edge against Rutgers, 26-24 against Penn State. One of these games is not like the other 4 in terms of the level of talent they were going up against. And that tells me more about what they're going to do against Michigan. So I do think, Arvell is probably of the 3. Joe Klatt said it a couple of times. They got 4 first-rounders right up the middle. And he's talking about Cade McDonald, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles.
I was like doing the math. I was like, Caleb, Sonny, Arvell, and I was like, I think he's talking about Cade McDonald being a first-round pick.
Yeah, I am. And I know we did what we did last Wednesday on the live show where we were predicting the third-year guys who might leave. I don't know. I just can't tell I think he's talented. He is one of the best defensive tackles in the country, especially in the run game. If that's how we're looking at it, if we're saying he is a first-round talent, I think I agree with Joe Klatt. It's just the NFL tells us what they like, and he's not 6'3". We stand next to this dude. He's not 6'3". And so, but the question is, does that matter? As we talked about last week, when a guy is this good, this stout against the run. And I love the names that Joe Klatt brought up. Vince Wilfork, a lot of those Patriots guys who literally looked like Caden McDonald. So, little shocked, but I think the point he was making, I agree with. They've got 4 guys right up the middle that, it's probably not smart to run the ball at them or do anything with them in the vicinity of the ball, because it's not going to go well. You should probably attack them on the perimeter.
Yeah. Spot on.
Go to your second point, and then I'll bring up what I'm going to bring up, because I think your second one's going
to sorry to interrupt you. Do you like when you have a feeling from something, and then you're like, I wonder if the numbers back it up? And then you check the numbers, you're like, that's how I felt with you reading those Arvell numbers. Because I'm watching the game and be like, feels like a lot of defensive end. And then you say the numbers, I'm like, feels good sometimes to be like, I noticed that.
Yes, that's how analysis should go, college football nerds. Your numbers should, you should have a feeling because you watched the game and then go, what if I go tally this out? Oh, okay. The numbers should back up what you already see, not using numbers and then trying to manipulate what you see so it backs up your numbers. So, yeah, because you're right. I watched the game. I'm like, Arvell's on the edge a lot. Why is he doing that? Oh, because they're going to bring Caleb Downs on a blitz up the middle of the field. That's why they're doing that. Because it's freeing up Caden McCurry to get sacks. That's a lot of edge. Okay, yeah, that number's backing up. So, yes, I am with you. Anytime the numbers back up my feelings based off what I watched, that's how I know I was watching ball.
Yes, and I'm going to use that theory to talk about the secondary. Number one, I want to say, watching the game, I was thinking to myself, damn, Davison was good. And then I checked PFF, and among corners who played 20-plus snaps this weekend, he was the 3rd or 4th highest graded in coverage. He was amazing in this game. He's had some really great games for Ohio State. This was up there in terms of some of his best. He was a lockdown corner, put him against Elijah Surratt, put him against whichever receivers. They're not. I wanted to say some of USC's receivers, but they're not going to make the playoff. But put him against Moore from Oregon. Put him against the best receivers in the country. He can cover. So shout out to Davison. He was balling out. But the second thing I wanted to say about the secondary, because I don't think we talked about it a ton on the post-game pod, and Ryan Day, I don't think was asked about Lorenzo Styles post-game. It seemed to be a shoulder thing. We've seen Lorenzo kind of deal with a bit of a shoulder thing. I don't even think it's just this season. I think last year he also might have. I don't know if I'm wrong on that.
He's had that shoulder brace on since he got here. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, against Illinois, Lorenzo Styles doesn't play. He also didn't play against Wisconsin, but they played a decent amount of Peyton Pierce. So, it wasn't really much of a talking point anyways with the nickel.
Yeah.
But he didn't play against Illinois. And we had, I think, 70 podcasts about Devin Sanchez starting and getting a lot of playing time and Jermaine moving inside with Devin playing outside. We saw that on dime packages still against Rutgers, but it was Bryce West who came in and played nickel. And I think that's important. And I think that's maybe partially a result of Bryce West developing in the right ways, and maybe a reminder of hey, it's tough for freshmen and Devins, going through the motions and everything. And Ohio State, when you're playing for a national title, you have to be very smart with every decision that you make. I like that Rutgers attacked Bryce West and attacked Devin Sanchez when they were on the field, because I think that's what teams are going to do if those two guys have to play more for Ohio State going down the stretch here. We have no idea. We'll see on Tuesday, I guess, what Lorenzo's status is. I'm I don't know what we'll get for Ryan Day on that. But that was definitely not nothing that Bryce West was the one who came in. It wasn't just Jermaine moving inside and Devin Sanchez coming in after Lorenzo got hurt. And again, like, I want to make it very clear, whether it was his play against UCLA or his play against, or Bryce West being the one who comes in against Rutgers, like, this is not me saying sell stock on Devin Sanchez or saying that he's not good, or he's a freshman and Ohio State's competing for a national title. And if a freshman struggles at times, they're going to try different things. And I think Bryce West coming in was maybe a bit of a reminder.
Let's start with Davison. 90.6 grade, 90.4 coverage grade. Those are both the highest of his career, dating back to his time at Ole Miss. So you are correct. And 2 targets, 2 incompletions. One was a pass breakup, and he also had a third target, which ended up in an interception. Davison is you gotta cherish Davison. That dude went all the way to the sideline, hopped up in the stands to give that ball to his parent. Which, listen, I don't have a problem with it because it's senior day.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it's like, yeah, I got a pick on senior day, and I'm balling. I'm giving this ball to my mom. Forget the rest of you. This is going to my mother. It's just funny because we saw it in real time and you're watching, hey, Davison, got a penalty, so you need to go back on the football field. Because he's thinking he's done. It's like, I got my pick. My mom's got the ball. I can go chill. And the offense is going to do what it does. No, Davison. Calm your emotions and go do it again. I also thought the third target, which I think was his first target again when they tried him deep, and it was an overthrow. I think that play right there is, I think, where he's shown the most growth. Because everybody does that, right? You get a one-on-one go ball, whether it's a back shoulder or over the shoulder, and they just get locked up in coverage. I think in years past, the problem was he didn't let go once it was time to go play the ball. He would stay latched on to the dude. Even though the ball was way overthrown, he let go and identified where the ball was. And it's a simple thing, but that is the difference between a guy who had 16 penalties last year, which led the country, to this year. I think he has like 3 penalties the entire year, but that alone might be, he's got 3 on the year. He had 1 against Ohio. He had 1 against Illinois, that was kind of questionable, and I remember that one now. And then he had the 1 against Purdue. And him just fixing that one thing, him wearing those mittens all off season, might make Andrew a prophet. So kudos to Davis and Igbinosun on having a really good season so far, and I think encapsulated in this year. Bryce West, 27 snaps. Devin Sanchez, 25 snaps. Obviously, all the Devins came at corner. All of Bryce West's snaps came in the slot, except one time, just the alignment of the play, he ended up in the box. I don't know what to make of that. I almost don't think it's a thing, because when they had a week to prepare, knowing that Lorenzo Styles wasn't going to play, they moved Jermaine inside and started Devin Sanchez. And so if Lorenzo doesn't play and you have a week to prepare, do they do that again? Especially since Michigan's got a good wide receiver, but they don't have 3. Jermaine didn't have his best day. He was actually the lowest graded player on their defense at like 39.8.
Probably because he had the penalty, which I thought was kind of a soft penalty, but
I thought the one in the end zone, that was legit. He did the Davison thing where he just didn't let go.
2
got locked in coverage. The first one, I don't think you have to turn around. He just locked the dude up and they threw it late. I don't think that was a penalty, but not a great day for Jermaine Matthews. But I think that Ohio State focused on the 2 outside wide receivers, so they wanted to keep Jermaine and Davison outside as much as possible. But also, I mean, let's just apply the logic that we saw on offense. Lincoln Keenholz played like starter rep snaps. Do we think they're going to do that against Michigan? Probably not. And so I think they saw an opportunity to instead, because I thought Devin played well. He was great in coverage. They went after him early and he held up great. I just think they saw an opportunity to get Bryce West reps in a game that they're probably not going to be able to get him an opportunity to get him for the rest of the year. Because even when they go with the dime look, it wasn't Bryce West in the game. It was Leroy Roker as like that third safety where Lorenzo Styles would typically be. So I don't know. It's one of those, is it something, nothing, or everything? And I think it's something, the fact that they went with Bryce West. I just don't think that something is a referendum on what Devin Sanchez's role is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's probably an element of like, if Bryce West is your starting nickel next year, it doesn't hurt to get him some reps. Yeah. I guess if Lorenzo doesn't play against Michigan or something like that, it would be interesting to see
what they do. Yeah,
because I think we're at least like more on alert for it being Bryce West than we were had the Rutgers game not happen. So yeah, like you said, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something, and maybe it's everything.
I have a thing. This is actually the first thing I want to bring up about the defense. Who would you say is the most Michigan-coded team Ohio State's played this year from an offensive standpoint?
DeMond is almost like too small to be like the way that he runs isn't the same way as Bryce Underwood runs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. Maybe Penn State. I don't know, because Penn State's got some pretty good running backs. Not a lot. Michigan's better on the perimeter. Is it Texas?
From the Saints, of both of them have 5-star quarterbacks that got way too much pub in the preseason. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I think Penn State's a good answer. Wisconsin is probably a decent answer. I think. I don't know. Like, Wisconsin's just not a good football team, so that one's hard. I think part of the reason I'm not really concerned about what's going to happen with that third safety position, whether Lorenzo plays or he doesn't play, is because I just think we're going to see a lot more 3 linebacker, which is part of why Arvell was on the edge so much, is because that's going to be Peyton Pierce doing regular linebacker stuff with Sonny Styles a lot of the time. Peyton Pierce is by game snaps, 15 against Texas, 25 against Grambling. Ohio, he played 20. To your point about Damon Williams, he only played 7 against Washington, which how often is Washington putting Ohio State in a position with any 3 linebackers on the field? Mm-hmm. Minnesota, who actually played a lot more 12 than I think any of us were anticipating. He played 24 snaps, 22 against Illinois, 35, which is a season high against Wisconsin, 22 against Penn State, and then the last 3 weeks, 23, 20, and 22 against Rutgers and Purdue and UCLA, which were all blowouts, so he was going to play regardless. But I think the Penn State, playing 22 against Penn State is interesting to me. Playing 22 against Illinois is interesting to me. Playing 24 because of how Minnesota approached things is interesting to me, because those were opportunities for there's 3 linebackers on the field. So Lorenzo comes off, Peyton Pierce goes on. I think he's like the X factor of Ohio State's defense this week if Michigan spends a bunch of time in 12 personnel. And so I don't think he played well. In fact, this is his lowest graded game of the season, 48. But I think he also missed a tackle for the first time this year. But I think we saw a little bit of 3 linebacker on Saturday. Not a lot, but a little bit. But Peyton Pierce is, I think, the most interesting piece of this defensive puzzle this week, because he might play 50 snaps simply because Ohio State's matching personnel.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a ton of him this week, and he's got a chance to really make an impact. So, yeah, not his best game against Rutgers, but he's had some really good moments this year. I thought he was pretty well. I thought he played pretty well against Texas, if I'm remembering. I'm trying to think of some of those early season games, but I'm pretty sure he played pretty well against Texas. And if he plays anything like that, I think Ohio State's got a chance to really slow down this Michigan rushing attack. So, yeah. I second what you said there.
Any just other overwhelming thoughts about the defense?
Defensively, no, not really. Offensively, it's just weird, right? Like it all fell out of sorts. And since we don't necessarily expect Jeremiah to miss the Michigan game, and we'll see what happens with Carnell, like you don't even want to read too much into it, because like how many games are they going to play without both of those guys? So I know we'll talk about them some more later. So, but offensively it was kind of weird, but defensively it was pretty dominant. And I think if we're going into the game, we talked pretty highly about the Rutgers offense and what they can do. And just because Ohio State beat the hell out of them doesn't make them a bad offense out of nowhere. Like, I thought Ohio State played really well defensively against a pretty good offense, and that's a good sign going into Michigan, Indiana, and beyond.
I think the starting defense is sick of the backups giving up random late game touchdowns that's throwing off their numbers when they're trying to chase history. I think 2011 Bama, who was at 7.1 points per game, I'll say it's at like 7.5 coming into that game, but the backups keep giving up late game garbage time touchdowns, and it's throwing off the math. I think it was Adam King who might have tweeted it, so let me go find Adam's tweet about how good the defense has been. So Adam had a tweet, Adam King over at 10 TV, shout out to Adam about this, that Ohio State's given up 9 touchdowns this season, and 5 of them have come in the final minute of the third quarter or later, aka what has been known for Ohio State as garbage time. At the time, 1 minute left in the third quarter, 34-0, 35-3, 34-3, 34-10, 14-0. So the backups are going to cost this defense history. Okay. Let's move. No, we can transition into Carnell and Jeremiah Smith. Carnell and JJ didn't play against Rutgers. Carnell hasn't played in 2 weeks. JJ played 2 snaps against UCLA, 22 snaps, against UCLA, and then was done for the day. Justice Haynes hasn't played in a few weeks. And I don't think Did Jordan Marshall play
I don't
this
think
past
so.
weekend? Okay, so the engine behind Ohio State's offense and the engines behind Michigan's offense did not play the week before the rivalry game. And right now, one of those four is guaranteed to not play in the game on Saturday. And that's Justice Haynes, who has been ruled out for the rest of the regular season. Sharon Moore would not say whether he's done for the season in general, meaning that if like Michigan were to get into the college football playoff, could they get back Justice Haynes or not? Jordan Marshall's been dealing with something, and so he missed last game. But it sounds like he should be back this week. JJ and Carnell, I still don't have any reason to believe they won't play this Saturday. And to be real with you, if I had confidence, I would say I'm like about 99% sure that Jeremiah Smith is going to play against Michigan. I don't know if I'm 99% sure with Carnell Tate, but I'm still not at a point where I'm worried about his availability for Michigan. I guess let's see what happens throughout this weekend, if we can maybe hear some different things going through the week. But who is more important to the operation? Because I'm sure you've watched a little bit of Michigan, because we're here now. We're getting into this game. Who is more important to their operation in terms of winning the game on Saturday? Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate to Ohio State's offense, or Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall to Michigan's offense?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I spent some time thinking about this. I think it's JJ and Carnell, and maybe recency bias plays into this, where I just saw Michigan's third running back run for 100 yards against Maryland, and I saw him play pretty well against Northwestern, which tells me that Michigan's run game in general is probably pretty damn good regardless of who's back there. And obviously it's a lot better and explosive when Haynes and Marshall are the guys back there, but they can still succeed with, a guy like, I keep thinking I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Is it Kudzel? I hope I'm pronouncing that.
I don't know if it's Kudzel or Kuzdale.
It's
not Dale, there's no E at the end, so Kuzdale.
There's Z's on both sides of the D, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is one of them supposed to be silent? It's difficult. It's difficult. As someone who has the last name that people probably think is very difficult to pronounce, I'm with you, my guy. We'll get through this.
Stephen Curry exists, so that's my gripe about my name.
I'm sure you enjoy watching him play basketball, though.
Sure. Yeah, he's a good basketball player. He's ruined my name for me. But I just...
But we also enjoy watching Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate play football.
Yeah,
and
I enjoy watching them play football. So
when they don't play football, Ohio State's far less enjoyable to watch. And I just that's their identity on offense. It's those two guys. And I think Michigan, without its running back, can still stick to its identity. It's not like Marshall and Haynes are out and they're going to throw it 40 times, because now what are they going to do? They're going to keep running their offense. Ohio State didn't have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and played 700 tight ends, and Justin Terry is lining up as an eligible receiver, and they have 600 different running backs who are coming into the game. They have 4 different quarterbacks coming in to play meaningful snaps. Those two guys didn't play, and it was what is going on right now? Whereas Michigan lost his 2 main running backs, it's I don't know, Bryce Underwood looked pretty good. Kudzel looked pretty good. Their receivers are healthy. So I think it's Jeremiah and Carnell.
I think Andrew Marsh's emergence as a receiving threat for Michigan helps offset. In fact, it probably opens up some things in the run game for Michigan. The fact that Bryce Underwood has a guy who he can go to on offense, and Donovan McCulley. And we're not going to turn this to a game preview pod. He's got 32 for 488. Andrew Marsh has 42 for 641. The passing attack is slowly developing. And maybe it doesn't mean that much for 2025, but it does mean something for 2026, especially since Marsh and Underwood are both freshmen out there doing this. That's something that will, I think, be interesting in 2026. I think, because the thing about Michigan is it's the run game, and that's just about as much as how they scheme it up, how they block up things. And their offensive line is still solid. It's not I don't think it should have been up for the Joe Moore Award this year. I think reputation got them in the Joe Moore Award conversation, but it's still a decent offensive line. I can't tell with this question if we're too, because I've had this question on here for this pod for about a month and a half now. They're okay, well, Michigan's got these 2 stars at running back. Ohio State's got 2 stars at wide receiver. Which one is who's more dangerous heading into that Saturday? And then unfortunately, obviously, Justice Haynes got hurt, and now JJ and Carnell have been dealing with something. But to the point of what Kuzdale did for Michigan, Max Clare kind of did that for Ohio State this weekend. Julian Sand had 157 yards, and 105 of them went to Max Clare. He had 13 completions, and 7 of them went to Max Clare for a touchdown, right? I think the gap between where Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are in the rest of the receiver room, and I'm not saying this as a compliment, at all. And maybe if I wasn't this close to it, I would be saying it as a compliment, but it's not a compliment. We were not expecting to walk out of the last 2 weeks going, the wide receiver depth's not where we thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. But the gap between them, as you can make a case that these are the best 2 wide receivers in college football when everybody's healthy, and whoever number 3 is significantly wider than the gap between Jordan Marshall and Justice Hayes, who are good running backs, but I don't think either is in the conversation for we're the best player in the country at our position. That belongs to a guy in South Bend, Indiana, right? They might not even be the best tandem in college football. South Bend, Indiana's got like a trio of dudes who can get after you. And like, I understand Jeremiah Love's the best of the bunch, but those other 2 are pretty good too. But the gap between those 2 and the rest of the running back room doesn't feel like it's as wide as the gap between we're the best 2 players in the country at this position, and we didn't play, and our quarterback didn't trust anybody else to throw the ball to at receiver. So that alone, I think, makes Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate maybe more important. And so I asked our texters this question as well. I didn't ask them about both as a unit, but I did ask them in general, do you think Ohio State can beat Michigan without Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate? Do you think they can beat Michigan without those 2?
I think they can beat Michigan without those 2. I don't think they can win a national title without those 2.
No, yeah. 59% still think they can beat Michigan if they don't have Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith next week. Do you think they can beat Michigan if it only has one of Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate? And the options were yes if it's Jeremiah Smith, yes if it's Carnell Tate, and no.
Yeah, I saw your survey. I wanted to click D, yes, regardless of which one of them it is. That was an option there for me. But I would feel more confident if it was Jeremiah than Carnell. I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, 82% said if it's Jeremiah, 12% said Carnell, and 6% said why? Why JJ over Carnell?
Because he's God.
Brennan, producer Brennan, if you're hearing this, please clip that. Yes, that is the correct answer. I think it's because we just watched him be the reason why they won a national title. It's because the defense was awesome, and it was 3rd and 11, and who'd they go to? And it's not a slight against anybody else. It's Carnell Tate is Scottie Pippen, and he just so happens like he plays with Michael Jordan. I don't know what to tell you, right? Kobe Bryant was very good. He just was playing with Shaq. That's probably a better kick because I think Carnell Tate. Like if we're basing it off the level they're on, I think Carnell Tate is not the Scottie Pippen of college football. I think he's more Kobe Bryant.
LeBron?
Yeah, especially since one's older. Yeah, that's probably a good comparison there. Where it's like, I mean, both of these guys could win a ring for me. It's just one of them is God.
Yeah, and we've also seen Ohio State with Jeremiah and without Carnell, and maybe that's cheating because. Right. We don't have a sample size of what's it look like when it's Carnell, not JJ, but I'll cheat. Like, I know what it looks like because we saw it. Granted, it was Purdue, but the offense looked fine. The offense looked like it was able to play its game. The offense didn't look like it had to, like, call different formations and different schemes to play around Jeremiah being the only one out there. And I think Carnell's awesome. There is still a gravitational pull for defenses when Jeremiah Smith is out there that maybe Bryson Rodgers. I thought Bryson Rodgers played well against Purdue. Maybe that's your example there. Like, when there's some gravity being pulled toward Jeremiah Smith, a guy like Bryson Rodgers can play pretty well, as opposed to when he's out there and the best receiver on the field is Brandon Inniss, all of a sudden it's like, oh, Bryson Rodgers doesn't look that great, right? I think there's an element to that. Like, JJ's out there. When number 4 is out there, the first thing a defensive coordinator is saying is, make sure we got number 4.
Yeah, one's number. Yeah, that's probably the right approach. Okay, so there's that. Let's pay some bills and let's talk about 2 5-star quarterbacks here on Buckeye Talk.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Psst, just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up and Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
We're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, your Leave No Doubt pod on a Monday, heading into Michigan week. Try to answer a few questions about this thing. Bryce Underwood, 62.2 completion percentage, 2,166 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's running a little bit. Carries for 322. That's 4.7 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns this year. This was the number one player in the 2025 recruiting class, who was for a long time committed to LSU. Has flipped to Michigan. Do you think LSU would have fired Brian Kelly if he had Bryce Underwood in his back pocket still?
Probably, yeah.
He doesn't get the Napier Lagway treatment. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What have we thought of Bryce Underwood so far this year? Of course, we're trying to context it two ways, right? This is the best player in his recruiting class. He's talked a lot of trash coming into this season. So, like, some of this he has brought on himself in terms of the attention. Don't be nobody be disrespectful. These are still kids, but, like, he's brought the attention on himself with the way he's handled some things, right? The context of what he was as a recruit, but also understanding what Michigan does offensively. What have you thought of what we've seen from Bryce Underwood this year?
If you had reasonable expectations for a freshman starting quarterback going into this year, then I think you think Bryce Underwood's pretty good. There's been highs, there's been lows, there's been times where I've wondered why the coaching staff has maybe held him back. There's been times where I've wondered why the coaching staff has put so much on his plate, right? Like, I just think it's been all over the place. And I think that's what you want, that's what you expect reasonably from a starting true freshman quarterback, right? Regardless of how talented they are. And I thought against Maryland, he played really well. I thought against Northwestern, he played well enough down the stretch. I thought, there's been games earlier this season where it just straight up didn't look good, period, right? Like, I thought the USC game, like, he did not look good, right? So I'm still very high on what Bryce Underwood is going to be as a collegiate quarterback, and I can see what an NFL team would be interested in, assuming that he continues to develop, on the right track. So, yeah, I think there's a good amount of teams in the Big Ten that would be just as good or maybe slightly better if this version of Bryce Underwood was their starting quarterback.
I think the thing I'm wondering for myself when it comes to Bryce Underwood is, can he beat J.J. McCarthy in this game? Because I think that's right now, if you were Matt Patricia, wouldn't your strategy for Michigan be make Bryce Underwood beat you?
With his arm?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Because he has not shown yet that that's a possibility. Like, he has 9 touchdowns this year, and 6 of them came in games against USC, Washington, and Maryland. And then against Oklahoma, he was 9 of 24. And again, that you and I both agree, like, they did not handle that well. He should not have thrown 24 passes
against Oklahoma. Yeah,
like,
that was a horrible game plan.
Like, what did you expect to get from Bryce in that game? Like, you want him to be Vince Young 2 games into his career? Like, really? That's what we're doing here? So J.J. McCarthy in his 2 starts against Ohio State, he was 12 of 24 for 263 and 3 touchdowns in 2022. And then in 2023, he had like the most J.J. McCarthy game I've ever seen in my life. He was 18 of 30 for 271, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 interceptions, but Jimmy Watkins, our rival reporter, he can tell you about this. Him and I were like in awe of what he was doing in 2023. And not because we were like, whoa, he's so good. It was like, I cannot believe he's doing any of this thing. Ohio State's game plan technically worked in terms of, we want J.J. McCarthy to show us he's a really good quarterback. And those were Kyle McCord's numbers. J.J. McCarthy's numbers were 16 of 20 for 148 and 1 touchdown. So even less of a impressive day. But he had like 4 throws in that game where it was like, this is why the Minnesota Vikings drafted them in the first round. It was like, I cannot believe he's doing this. But like, lightning going to strike twice? If Ohio State forces Bryce Underwood to repeat J.J. McCarthy's 2023 Michigan-Ohio State game, can he do it? And if the answer is yes, then we're all going to be looking at each other like, I cannot believe Bryce Underwood's doing this. He's literally growing up in the Ohio State-Michigan game right now. Yeah. But more likely than not, it's going to be like 5% better than it was in the Oklahoma game, simply because this is game 12 and not game 2. And I'm not sure if that's enough to beat Ohio State from an X's and O's point of view. And so that's why the question with him and Julian, especially with Julian coming off a game where he was good, not great when he didn't have his best two weapons, who has more to prove, Julian Sand or Bryce Underwood in this game?
Well, everything you just presented makes me want to say Bryce Underwood, but I think my answer is still Julian Sand. He's playing for a Heisman, and Ohio State's lost 4 straight games to Michigan. And, he's supposed to be new CJ Stroud, and new Southern California quarterback is going to end the streak that started with a Southern California quarterback.
Hey, don't throw my story ideas in my face.
I think it's Julian, because I think everything you just said points to, can Bryce make the plays when it's time to make the plays? Feels like with Julian saying, he's got to be ready to make the plays all the time, right? And that's not to say that Ohio State's running game isn't going to do anything, but an extension of Ohio State's running game is what they do in terms of short yardage passing, right? And passing on the, going horizontally, right? And stretching out the field a little bit. I think that matters to their running game, right? It feels like an extension of it. So Julian's got to be on his A game, and he's also going into a tougher environment. And the biggest thing right now for his whole Heisman conversation is he hasn't played anyone. Going on the road to Ann Arbor, playing well against that defense, and ending the losing streak that's the most talked about losing streak in college football. I think Julian has a ton to prove, and everyone's going to have all their eyes on him. Whereas with Bryce, sure, he can prove a lot of things. I think if they win, everyone's going to say, whoa, that was a pretty damn good freshman year for him. Let's see that continue in the playoff. If he loses, it's going to be, that was an up and down freshman year for him. Ohio State still has to face him 2 times, and he's going to be better the next 2 times they face him. It just feels like there's an element to this where Julian, I think the world is saying, hey, you better do it. Whereas with Bryce, it's, hey, let's see what you can do.
Ohio State's quarterback has thrown 2 interceptions in the last 3 Michigan games. TJ threw 2 in 2022. Kyle threw 2 in 2023, and Will Howard threw 2 last year. That's just a fact. I just pointed that out because I'm looking at all the box scores right now. Man, I didn't even realize that. I think Ohio State's quarterback, actually, let me say it this way instead. I agree with you. The Texans agree with you. 63% said Julian Sand has more to prove on Saturday. When is the last time that answer was the Michigan quarterback?
Pre-Ryan Day, for sure.
Right. And I'm wondering, because I'm looking at the stats right now. 2021, Stroud was a better quarterback than Cade McNamara that day. 34 of 49 for 394 and 2 touchdowns. Cade McNamara was 13 of 19 for 159 and an interception. In 2022, as I pointed out earlier, CJ Stroud was 31 of 48 for 349, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. J.J. McCarthy, 12 for 24, 263 and 3 touchdowns. 2023, as I pointed out earlier, J.J. McCarthy, 16 of 20 for 148 and a touchdown, while Kyle McCord was 18 of 30 for 271, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And then last year, Will Howard was 19 of 33 for 175, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Davis Warren was 9 for 16 for 62 yards and 2 interceptions. But I don't know if anybody is looking at Michigan's quarterbacks and going that wasn't good, right? But Ohio State's quarterbacks outside of last year kind of put up the numbers, and we're all looking at them you didn't live up to the standard. I think the reason why I'm inclined to say Bryce Underwood is because he is the first Michigan quarterback since Ryan Day became the head coach at Ohio State that actually has a level of pressure that he needs to bring it. Now, does he have to bring it to the level of Julian Sand? No, because if Bryce Underwood plays really well in this game, it's not going to put him in the Heisman Trophy conversation the same way it might win the Heisman Trophy for Julian Sand, especially if he backs it up and plays against Indiana very well. But Bryce Underwood's a 5-star, just like Julian Sand is. Unlike Julian Sand, Bryce Underwood has spent the last 11 months talking crazy, even about this rivalry. I mean, he went on some national show in the offseason before he got to Michigan and was talking about how he had a conversation with LeBron James and told him that Ohio State was in trouble. Rich Eisen. Yeah, he went on the Rich Eisen show and talked about that. But it's I don't know. I think you can make the case that Bryce Underwood has more to prove simply because his resume ain't that different than Julian Sand in terms of what they brought to the table as first-year starting quarterbacks coming into the season. And Bryce Underwood has not shown that yet. Julian Sand has at least shown he has the capability, even if unfortunately the opponents on his schedule who were supposed to give him the spotlight to do it didn't turn out to be as good as people thought they were going to be. But that's not on Julian Sand. I don't think anybody thinks Julian Sand is going to have a bad game on Saturday. Does he have his best game? I guess we'll find that out. But his floor was he completed 68% of his passes when he didn't have his best 2 weapons. And it was only the second time all year he's been under 70% completion percentage. And he's completing 80% of his passes on the year, right? His innate floor of like what a bad game looks like is already higher than what we think of Bryce Underwood. So I don't know, man. Like, you're supposed to be the dude, and you talking like it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it also, as you were talking, an interesting thought that came to mind is I'm gonna ask you this question. And every single person who's going to listen to this, including you, is going to say, that is the dumbest question ever. And then think about it for a second. And ask me if you still think it's a stupid question. Which coach is under more pressure on Saturday?
I've been thinking it's a dumb question, but it's a dumb question because we know why. But it's not, though.
So I was on campus on Thursday for a panel that the Lantern had. And I picked up their rivalry edition paper. It's a really cool thing. If you have a chance to go to campus and pick one of those up, it's really cool. They do like a back-to-back where half of it is the Lantern Ohio State student paper writing about the game, and then the other half is the Michigan Daily, the Michigan student paper writing about the game.
Yeah, it's really cool.
As I'm flipping through it, in the middle, one half of the page is about Ryan Day and Ohio State and the game. And the other half, I'm reading it, and they wrote that this is the most important game of Sharon Moore's career. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, Ryan Day has taken the rivalry to a place that Ohio State is not used to it being. He's taken it to a place where Michigan has won 4 in a row. And there's a lot of pressure to write that. But he's kept Ohio State in a spot where they are consistently competing for national titles and just won a national title. Sharon Moore has kept the Harbaugh thing going in a sense of beating Ohio State. But their program is not as good as it was when Harbaugh left it. Some would say that Sharon Moore was born on third base. I'm not going to say that. Some people would say that. If he loses to Ohio State, what has he maintained that Harbaugh left him? He's not competing for national titles, and now he's not winning the rivalry. So I think there is a level of pressure on Sharon that, again, it's a dumb question because Ryan Day had to get security because he lost to Michigan last year, and like the thought of doing that for a 5th straight year is probably terrifying to him and to a lot of fans. But there's a lot of pressure on Sharon Moore to do this because otherwise you're 9-3 and now you're not beating Ohio State. So what are you doing that Harbaugh left you?
The reason why I don't think it's a dumb question is at the time that we're recording this right now, Stefan does not know what the live pod is yet. I typically send that Sunday afternoon, but I've been working on other things. So to be frank about it, I have not thought about the live show yet. But I know what we're doing for a live show. I just didn't have time to send it. That's all it is. Okay, listen, we're writing a lot of stuff for Michigan Week, so just sometimes things get later. I want you to keep this argument, and I want you to put it in your back pocket.
I can do that
because the reason I don't think it's a dumb question is because I think there's an answer of it's the team who's lost 4 years in a row. Stupid, right? It's that, but I do think it's an interesting, nuanced conversation of the idea of who actually has more to prove. And I think the reason it's more complex is Michigan did not have a good season last year. But because of the coaching malpractice of Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, and the offensive coaching staff last year, and then Alabama kind of dropping the ball in a bowl game, it got glossed over that Michigan did not look great. Especially when you mix in, they flipped Bryce Underwood and convinced him to stay home. Mm-hmm. Those 3 bullet points have allowed Sharon Moore a level of grace that I'm not sure he earned. And now they're coming into, I think this is the most consequential game of his career. Because, right, he was playing with house money coming in Ohio State last year. They were a 21-point underdog. They weren't even supposed to be there. Their season was over, and it was just like, whatever. If they beat Ohio State, they're going to make the playoff and more than likely go to the Big Ten championship game. So, like, they have things on the line that weren't on. This is the most Sharon Moore has had on the line as officially the head coach of Michigan in his entire tenure. Because he was the interim the last time. Because even that's like, I mean, he's the one coaching, but it's somebody else's regime, it's somebody else's program. He's just trying to keep the ship afloat. So it's like, how much credit do you give him versus how much credit you don't give him, right? It's just kind of hard. This is all about Sharon. So I do think there's a case to be made that actually Sharon Moore has more to prove, while the Ohio State Ryan Day side of it is maybe a little bit more, I just think it's obviously stated, but can you go deeper than that? can you go deeper than, okay, he's lost 4 in a row, but he also is the reigning national champion, and they're 11-0 right now. And regardless of what happens in this game, they're going to make the playoff, and it doesn't change whether or not we think they can win a national title. So it's hold on to that thought for right now. Hold on to that thought till Wednesday, and I hope we execute that well. But yeah, I don't know. Julian has more to prove because he has more on the line in this game. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure how people view Bryce Underwood right now. And we're coming off of a year where DJ Lagway took over as a starter halfway through Florida's 2024 season. He was a true freshman. Dylan Raiola started as a true freshman. Malik Washington starting at Maryland right now, and there's a lot of promise there. But those guys took promise into year 2. Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagway didn't turn it into much of anything in year 2. We'll see with Malik Washington and Bryce Underwood. But I don't know, man. I have not seen, this is why he was the best player in his recruiting class yet. And
most expensive.
That
matters.
It does. And at some point, you got to showing why it was worth the price of admission. And there's not a more perfect game to show that it was worth the price of admission than November 29th. Which is, I don't know, the last dude who was the number 1 player in his recruiting class's birthday, and he proved to be the price of admission very quickly in 2024. Yeah, so let's talk about Dan Sharon on Wednesday. Let's take our last break, and then we'll close with this here.
In Walmart's Huluville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
We're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and Stefan Krajisnik, Leave No Doubt Pod, which is more just like a conference. We're just trying to get the ball rolling on Michigan week this year. This was actually the first question on the survey, 4350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. How nervous are you about the Ohio State-Michigan game, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest? Where do you think the fan base is right now, man?
9.5.
Not that, actually, it's not that high, but it is that high. 16% of the people were at a 10. But then 20% were at a 7, 19% were at an 8. There were some people who were at a 1. It's I'm not nervous, man. It's okay. We'll be all right. So the average ended up being 7.11. But yes, everybody is on the higher end of this, which is funny. I didn't ask confidence level. I asked nervous level.
Big difference.
Confidence level it's a big difference, man. Confidence is about, nervousness is about, all right, we lost 4 in a row. Are you going to hurt me again?
Every football fan goes through the thing of you spend half of your week, I do this with the Bears all the time. You spend half of your week being hell yeah, we're going to win. And then right before you go to, you close your eyes to go to bed, you're what if we lose?
Yes. Because how much worse can it really get than what it was last year? I don't know, lose a 5th one and let's see what happens.
Getting pepper sprayed on the road instead of at home.
You got to sit on a bus with that because they bus to Ann Arbor. They don't fly. Yeah, they bus. Rank these outcomes of your early thoughts on how the Michigan game plays out. The options were Ohio State wins close, Michigan wins close, Michigan wins in a blowout, OSU wins in a blowout. 1 through 4, most likely outcomes. And it's Sunday, 9 o'clock as we're recording this pod. People are listening to it on a Monday.
Yeah, I think most likely is Ohio State wins in a blowout. Second most likely is Michigan wins close. Third most likely is Ohio State wins close. And fourth most likely, or the least likely, is Michigan wins in a blowout. I don't think Michigan's a team, which is funny because they just blew out Maryland, but I don't think they're a team in matchup games built to blow somebody out. So I just don't see that happening. To me, and I said this to one of our texters last week when I did a bit of a Q&A session with them, and they were asking about the spread in Ohio State minus 12.5 and what I thought of that number, because it is a pretty big number for a team on the road in rivalry week. And I said, if you think Ohio State is going to win, if you think they get over this hump, they are the significantly better team, and they probably should win by a couple touchdowns, if not more. But if you don't think they get over the hump, then you should probably just take Michigan to win the game. And don't worry about it being, don't worry about Michigan just covering plus 12.5. So I think if it's close, it's probably telling us that Michigan is doing its thing and they're going to win this game. And what we've seen the past few years is just going to continue. But I think the most likely thing is Ohio State plays its game and wins by a decent margin. For me, blowout was like 10 plus. That was my line for blowout. I wasn't thinking like Ohio State wins by like 30. I think by winning by 2 possessions in this game is enough for me to consider a blowout, right? And 2 possessions in a sense of like not a garbage time field goal at the end, but more like you're up 14 at the start of the fourth, Michigan scores, and it's like, all right, if they get this onside kick, like that's not close to me. So that's my order. Ohio State blowout, Michigan close, Ohio State close, Michigan blowout.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I view blowouts too. It's like we controlled the game, and like we only won by 10, but we had control of the full game. Like if I think
Ohio State Texas felt a little bit like a blowout, and then I will admit Texas had the ball with a chance to tie it and had some momentum. So I get it. If you're a Texas fan who's like, we did not get blown out, I see your argument. But for a lot of that game, when it was 14-0, at least when it was 14-0. There was not much hesitation about who was going to win that football.
That was literally about to be my example. Texas didn't get blown out from like if you're just a box score watcher, but if you watch the football game, like your touchdown was, it was a 4th down, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I guess like it could have been ruled as an incomplete catch. I don't think it was like foregone conclusion. Like they had to review the touchdown, and not just because they reviewed touchdowns, but like because they weren't sure whether he caught it or not. Ohio State could have easily won that game 14-0. So it's that. Like, I think the Ohio State Texas game is a prime example of whether or not you actually watch football games or you just watch box scores. Because blowout for me is a 2-score game where it never felt like one team had a chance at all winning the football game. Our texters ranked it this way, and here was the average score. Ohio State wins a close game. Average score was 1.53. It got 59.1% of the first place votes and 30.2% of the second place votes. Ohio State wins in a blowout. Over the average score was 2.17. They got 31.2% of the first place votes, 26% of the second place votes, and 38% of the third place votes. And I'm saying to understand that this is a mainly Ohio State texting service, so obviously those two being number 1 and number 2, I don't think it's that shocking. Michigan wins in a close game. Average score was 2.41. They got 9.4% of the first place votes, 42.2% of the second place votes, and 46.4% of the third place votes. And then significant gap, Michigan wins in a blowout, 3.89. They've won a blowout in 2 of the last 4, so it wouldn't be completely off base. They got 6.5% of the third place votes and 91.6% of the fourth place votes. So like basically every fourth place vote went to them. Like nobody thinks Michigan's going to blow Ohio State out, which is why I think that especially 21 and 22 are just so like jaw dropping. It's not even the fact that Michigan just won, but they kind of ran Ohio State out the building, which is like, how the heck did this happen? But I think I'm eventually going to come around to Ohio State wins in a blowout. But right now, I'm at Ohio State wins in a close game, Michigan wins in a close game, Ohio State wins in a blowout, Michigan. And part of me almost wants to flip Michigan wins in a blowout, Ohio State wins in a blowout, because Ohio State's playing on the road. So there is a good chance that throughout this week, Ohio State wins in a blowout goes from number 4 to number 1. I just got to, we typically don't get to be in the building twice during Michigan week. We typically get everything, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. We'll get Day and we'll get the players on the field, and that's it. Day is sticking to routine. He has been adamant about routine and making sure everything stays as normal as possible for this team. And so we'll talk with Day on Tuesday. We'll get the players on Wednesday night, which will more than likely be the captains. So Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Austin Saravelt, and Brandon Ennis, more than likely. I would love it if we got Julian Sand. No shot. We didn't get Julian Sand after the game against Rutgers. They're not going to give him to us 3 days before the game against Michigan. But I'm kind of happy we're getting to be in there twice because it becomes like a vibes thing. I think there's going to be a lot of questions Day gets on Tuesday where you're not really even looking for a tangible answer. You're just trying to see how that question hits him and how he goes about trying to answer that question. Obviously, there's the housekeeping things of like, hey, what's up with JJ and Carnell? Hey, is Lorenzo Styles okay? But there's going to be a lot of like big picture conversations. And I think how he answers some of these questions, I am interested to see how it's received by us in the media, but then also the fans in general. And that's where I think it might help me. I think it might help all of us kind of cultivate what we think might happen in those games. Because if it feels like he's exuding confidence, like real confidence, not the fake stuff, then we're like, okay, well, Ohio State's going to go in there and handle its business. If he starts talking about the freaking rushing battle, I swear it, I'm going to lose all confidence like immediately in what's happening in this game. So I just want to see how they handle things. And then one other thing, I'm interested in where the fan base is on this. And also where you are as a person who your first experience with this is like, it's okay that you lost to Michigan, but like you won a national title, man. That's why it's okay. Everything will be all right. You got the ring. And you're also not from Ohio. You're from Big Ten country, but you're not from Ohio, and you have never covered Ohio State before last year. So you were almost coming into this with fresh eyes. What is more important? And I said it to you as an Ohio State fan, to the texter 614-350-5015. But overall, what is more important for Ohio State in 2025? If you can only have one of these two, winning back-to-back national titles or beating Michigan and ending a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, I hated when you emailed me this.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm just a guy.
What's more irritating? The fact that I asked you this question, or the fact that like I have the ability to ask this question because of what happened last year?
Yeah, I think the answer is winning back-to-back national titles, because that's something Ohio State has never done. And accomplishing that would be, I mean, just a feat that hasn't happened at Ohio State before. And it puts you in this conversation with, you start talking dynasty, man. 3-5 is kind of what I lean into being a dynasty, right? 3 titles in 5 years. If you go 2 for 2, you're right there, right? And you only get so many years of Julian Sand, Jeremiah Smith, Cardinal Tate, Caleb Downs. Like, winning national titles, like, you kind of have to take advantage of opportunities like this and win national titles and try to win as many as you can, right? Because in order to win back-to-back titles, you need to go from a roster like last year's to a roster like this year's. And that's really hard to do, even at places like Ohio State. Like I said earlier, it's never happened before at Ohio State. So it's evil that you're asking me this week, because if you were asking me this question in August or March or Christmas, it would be very easy for me to say the answer that I just gave you. But you're asking me on Sunday, November 23rd, and that feels a little bit dirty for you to do that, frankly.
I brought this up on an earlier Monday pod, I think about a month ago, like all the teams who have done it like uncontested. And I put it that way because obviously for a long time here, people like us voted on national champions, which was always stupid. Why are we letting people who are not playing college football decided on the field? Since 1947, programs have done it. Michigan did it Minnesota did it in 1940 and 1941. Army did it in 1944 and 45. And then Notre Dame did it for 46 and 47. Oklahoma in 1955 and 56. Nebraska in 94, 95. And then since we got to this BCS era and beyond, where we stopped voting on national champions like idiots, Alabama did it in 2011 and 12. And then Georgia is the only team since we've introduced the playoff era to do it. They did it in 21 and 22. And so, like, obviously no one's done it during the 12-team college football playoff era. We've been in it for 2 years. And Ohio State is well positioned to start off this 12-team era by doing it twice. So it's this element of history, positive history versus negative history. I think is probably if you look at it from that perspective, I think it's what makes it that much harder, because it's like, hey, I think either way Ohio State's going to be a part of some history with either one of these answers. It's just one of them is kind of like the least type of history you want to be a part of, because I can't tell you when the last time Ohio State lost the game 5 years in a row. You're probably talking about like the 90s, maybe even further along than that. I don't even think
there was the weird stretch that went from late 80s to early 90s, but there was like a tie thrown in there. I think the tie was the tie with Herb Street. I think they might.
I think so. Yeah.
So I think they had gone. I think they had gone 5 or 6 straight years without winning it. But they had never gone. They had not gone 5 straight years of losing.
So last time they lost it 5+ years in a row was from 1922 to 1927.
Jesus.
So almost 100 years ago that they lost it. Because you're right. In 1990, and they had a couple of those instances in 1945 to 1948. They lost 4 years in a row, and then they tied in 49, and then they lost it 2 more years after that, but like a tie breaks that up, right? And then in the 90s, as you mentioned, they lost it from 1988 to 1991, and then you had the tie in 92, and then they lost it again, and then they lost it 3 straight years in a row after winning in 94. They lost back-to-back in 91 and 2000, and then obviously they went on that run. over the last 20 years, where the only loss was in 2011 during like Luke Fickell. Like, nobody even like thinks about that year because of what made that year, where I think Ohio State went 7-5 even possible. So over 100 years.
Yeah, I was going to say
100 years.
I was writing something recently, and I was combining the records. Just as an anecdote, the combined records of Urban and Tressel against Michigan. And I was like, this math isn't adding up. And I was like, oh yeah, 2011.
Yeah.
I was like, the number of games does not match the number of years. And I was like, oh, it's because I'm counting 2011 in the number of years.
You're trying to give Fickell's loss to somebody, and you shouldn't do that. So yeah, like the question is, hey, you'll be in history because you'll be the 8th team since 1940, repeat as an uncontested national champions, but you'll also be the first team in almost 100 years to be in a position where you're saying you've lost 5 straight games to Michigan, versus the other way around. It's just like you ended the losing streak, but you just like didn't win a national title. I think that one is easier on your mental psyche and emotional state because you ended the rivalry, and like national championships are hard. So like, you didn't win a national championship. Okay, we've won 3 of those in the last 25 years. Okay, it's not like we won 9 of those. Like, we're going to do shame on you for not winning a national title. They're hard. And they've gotten more difficult because you got to go through multiple rounds to do it now. Also, most of this offense is coming back in 2025. In 2026, we'll be okay. But 54% said winning back-to-back national titles, which is crazy that we got here. But I do think when you see it play out, you lose to Michigan and you can still win. After you see the idea of expanded playoff, expanded conference means that the Ohio State-Michigan game no longer has to define your season, especially with that group where it defined their careers. I do think that's how you get to the point where it's still a close conversation, but you can start to see the tide turning a little bit.
Yeah.
This is one of those where I would want to demographic the voters, like how many of them are from Ohio, how many of them are from the Midwest in general, how many of them are boomers, X's, and millennials, and all those different things. Like, what's the age bracket of people in each side of those brackets? I do think all those things play into which side you care about more.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't stop thinking about Brennan clipping me saying that Ohio State fans should rather win back-to-back national titles. And I have enough Michigan fans in my mentions as is. And now I'm just Brennan's about to do it to me, isn't he?
Yeah, I know I said earlier, Brennan, to clip stuff. Don't clip stuff. Don't clip stuff.
Brennan cannot wait to clip stuff this week. And it might put us through hell, and it's the price of doing business, I guess.
He's gonna clip me saying, Brennan, don't clip stuff, and then immediately go into all the clips of this. This is exactly why I didn't listen to Steven when he told me not to clip all these things. It's great having him. It really is, seriously. He's great at this. Honestly, he's awesome at this. I think that's an interesting question, though. It's like, what's more important for this year? Because I don't think the overwhelming is like, yeah, we want to win national titles, but in this year, and a lot of this is some of this is based off of the way that like Caden Curry talked about this, man. Like, yeah, we've won a national title. That's great, but we're also the senior class. We're also another senior class who hasn't won a Big Ten championship. We haven't even been to Indianapolis, let alone won in Indianapolis. And we don't have any gold pants. So, like, sure, it's cool that I have this ring on my finger. But, like, when you envision what your career is going to go like when you get to Ohio State, there are things you are supposed to get done, and we have not gotten those things done. I remember Marv saying, he said it in some interview where he was like, when I got to Ohio State, it was just like a foregone conclusion we're going to Indianapolis. Like, yeah, like, that's where we're going. And then we never got there. His one time doing anything Ohio State related inside Lucas Oil Stadium was Big Ten Media Days in 2023. So it's, yeah, like, I get where these players are coming from. It's not devaluing the natty. It's just the standard's a standard. Beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, compete for national titles. We won the national title, but like we left the other two behind in the dust. I would like to not leave here feeling like I didn't beat Michigan or I didn't win a Big Ten title because I'm not. It's not that I didn't have a good career. It's just not going to feel complete. And so that's, I think, why they have. I think it's part of the reason they've played so well this year is because you won a natty, but that carrot is still out there because it was a national championship that was incomplete because you didn't do everything you said you were going to do. I like Caden Curry.
And I think that we have had a lot of texters ask, are they going to rest starters if they make it to Indianapolis? They're playing to win that game.
No.
And that's the reason that they're going to play to win that game is that, I don't want to say the same reason that they're playing to beat Michigan, but there's some overlap there of you want to accomplish something that you've never accomplished before. you don't want 2 straight senior classes feeling like their goals are incomplete. Yeah, this game matters on Saturday, to say the least.
Yeah, it's college sport. I think it's the essence of college sports, and that's why it's so important that we still care about these things. Yeah, the tangible consequences have changed, but I don't think the emotional toll that they take on you should change, because that's when you really go full pro mode. You'll never want to go full pro mode.
Yeah,
you want to have some college aspect to it.
It really does feel like this week is kind of like a season in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like instead of this game defining your season, because it no longer does that, it is kind of its own standalone season. And again, if they play each other multiple times, we'll deal with that when they get there. But right now, it feels like its own standalone thing where Ryan Day can accomplish his goals. And there is a scenario too where Ohio State loses this and goes to Indianapolis. No, there is.
Yes, you're correct. There is a scenario where they can still get to.
Could it still be Ohio State, Indiana, even if Ohio State loses this game?
Hold on one second, because I had it up a second ago. Now I have to find it. The scenarios. Can you vamp for a second while I find this?
Yeah, because it would be. I'm trying to find the tiebreakers too as well, because it would be pretty fascinating if it was like Ohio. I don't think there's an Ohio State, Oregon. I have it pulled up here. Here we go. I think Ohio State would have to be undefeated to make it, or they would have to play Michigan.
Yeah, that's what it is. There's only one path where if they are not 9-0 in play.
Right. There's no path to like 8-1 Indiana. Sorry, 8-1 Ohio State against Indiana, or 8-1 Ohio State against Oregon. If Ohio State loses, their only chance at the Big Ten title is playing Michigan again. So yeah, we'll do it. So yeah, their goals. A lot of their goals depend on this game still. This game is still very important. It's the point that I'm trying to make. And to the players, the game and the Big Ten title do matter, even if the circumstances of college football have changed.
Okay, so yeah, let's end with that. I'm just gonna read off all of them. Here are the 7 scenarios that the Big Ten presented, and we'll close with this. Scenario number 1 is the one that I think we're all anticipating right now, and that's just that Ohio State and Indiana handle business, and then they meet each other in Indianapolis next weekend. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is Indiana beats Purdue, Michigan beats Ohio State, and Oregon beats Washington, and so then you get a rematch of Indiana and Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. Scenario number 3 is Indiana handles business against Purdue, Michigan beats Ohio State, and Washington beats Oregon. So now Michigan and Indiana are playing for the Big Ten Championship. Scenario number 4 is Ohio State beats Michigan, Purdue beats Indiana, and Oregon beats Washington. So then Indiana goes because they have the head-to-head. Scenario number 5. So like Indiana doesn't actually have to beat Purdue. Well, let me finish reading them. Scenario number 5, Oregon and Michigan are playing in the Big Ten Championship game, and that's if Purdue beats Indiana, Michigan beats Ohio State, but then also Oregon beats Washington. Scenario number 6 is Ohio State versus Michigan, and that's if Michigan beats Ohio State, Purdue also beats Indiana, while Washington beats Oregon. And then you have scenario number 7 is Ohio State and Indiana again, and that's if Purdue beats Indiana, Ohio State beats Michigan, and Washington beats Oregon. So
scenario number 7 was a lot unnecessary to mention.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why they. It's like, listen, man. Here's the deal: beat Michigan, and you're going to Indianapolis. That is everything since the first college football playoff rankings has been that exact thing for Ohio State. Beat Michigan, and the world is yours. Don't beat Michigan, and you leave yourself open to weirdness. Here's a schedule for the week. You're listening to this on Monday. Tuesday, Rants Pod, completely the game based. So this is your chance to air out your grievances. You got a lot of great rants coming in already. So Rants Pod on Tuesday. If you want us to get your rant in, 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, Wednesday Pod in your feed in the mornings will be us talking with Ryan Day and what we learned. And then Wednesday afternoon, 11 a.m. actually, we'll be going live. And that will be our game preview pod. And that's going to be a long game preview pod. We're going to discuss the things that Stefan got into earlier and also give our game predictions and everything else. And that'll be it. Like the game preview pod it'll air 11 a.m. on YouTube. It'll be in your feeds Thursday morning, and that'll live in your feeds Thursday and Friday, because that's the last time you hear from us until after the game on Saturday at noon on Fox. Ohio State, Michigan for a spot in the Big Ten Championship game. If Ohio State wins, they get to the Big Ten Championship game and essentially kind of lock up a bye week in the college football playoff, regardless of what happens. If Michigan wins, they go to the Big Ten Championship game, and I think they also make themselves a lock to make the college football playoff. So Ohio State and Michigan both have things on the line this year, which I think that's always when this game is at its best, when it feels like both sides have something to gain and something to lose by winning or losing that football game. So get the text 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, for Stefan Krajisnik, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.